I am scary. I am threatening.
I'm Darth Vader. Power panel. Your resident goofball right here, Cenk Uygur. Serious news anchor John Iadarola. Jessica Burbank is taking it to the bank at Rebel headquarters and on the main show. Okay, so do we have a fantastic show for you guys? Of course. Are there super important and serious stories? Yes. Will we analyze it better than anyone else? Of course. But we also have a set of hilarious stories peppered throughout the show. Okay, there's no salt on today's show, but there is pepper. Okay, yes. So I'm going to do a very rare tease of a members only story. The funniest story of the year. It's for the members. It's happening today. The funniest story of the year. But we also have a super interesting story later that is not political. It's a little tiny bit political. But should you dump your girlfriend over student debts? Jurama.
Just in case, so already did. I'm not taking any chances.
Look, Johnny Pie, always thinking, always thinking. Okay, so all right. Without further ado, let's do some politics.
Okay, we don't have any time for any more ado. So everyone, prepare to hear the most divisive speech in American political history, starting with this.
Equality and democracy are under assault. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. Now, I want to be very clear. Not every Republican, not even the majority of Republicans are MAGA Republicans. Not every Republican embraces their extreme ideology.
Now, that speech that you're hearing from President Biden can mean different things to you depending on who you are. If you're a member of the mainstream media or pretty much any right-wing political commentator, what you heard right there was indecipherable. It was just swears and slurs, and that's it. It was unacceptable. It certainly wasn't anything that was going to unify us. If you're a regular person, he was acknowledging truths that we've all come to understand 4 or 5 years ago at this point. But anyway, he also made clear there that the comments he was making were about the most extreme end of the MAGA movement, not regular Republicans. I think he was honestly being too fair, too generous to them. But that said, he did have more warning to do. Take a load of this.
The Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. They do not believe in the rule of law. They do not recognize the will of the people. And they're working right now, as I speak, in state after state, to give power to decide elections in America to partisans and cronies. MAGA forces are determined to take this country backwards to an America where there is no right to choose, no right to privacy, no right to contraception, no right to marry who you love. They spread fear and lies. Lies told for profit and power.
Now, all of that is true, especially indicating there that they do it for profit. Whether on the media side or the political side, they're doing it for their own ends. But what he said there about what they want to accomplish is true. They do want to strip away those rights. He's not making this up. He's not speculating. This isn't a hypothesis. This is what they're doing out every day. And in terms of their threat to democracy, how many Republicans acknowledge the results of the 2020 election? How many candidates on the Republican side this year accept the results of their elections, even inside of just Republican primaries? How many candidates for secretaries of state or county elections boards officers are not being positioned there simply so that they can give Donald Trump a better chance of overturning the results of the next election? All of this is abundantly clear. It's important that people understand it. But the media is going to be just so freaked out by the fact that a president would say it that I wonder how much of the honest meaning there is actually going to be absorbed by most people. But what do you think?
Yeah, so first of all, it's really amazing that there are 3 versions of this speech. So one version of the speech is right-wing media and corporate media. They're again united and going like, oh my God, look at Dark Brandon lasering those poor Republicans. What is he doing? What a monster, right? I'm like, wait, did we see the same speech? Okay, so they're like, how can he say that the Republicans are a threat to democracy? I don't know, January 6th when they raided the American Capitol, but more importantly, when they had a scheme of fake electors where they would do a coup and end our democracy. Maybe that was a dead giveaway that they were trying to end democracy. But why are they doing that? Okay, right-wing media you get, and we'll talk more about them because they're hilarious. Their overreaction is just the funniest thing in the world later in the show, okay? But mainstream media, mainly CNN, oh, they're in a cold sweat panic. John Harwood just got fired, okay? And his last segment on CNN was, yeah, Republicans are a threat to democracy. And they're like, get him off there, get him off there. CNN has a new Republican owner. He's taking this personally. So I've now seen half a dozen segments on CNN. Biden is being way too mean and offensive. Can you believe what Biden is saying? Calling them semi-fascist. I can't believe it. Oh. Please don't fire me. Please, new Republican owner, please don't fire me. Okay, I got it. Brianna Killar, almost all of them. John Allen, all of them. They're all begging for their jobs by kissing Republican ass on air now. So CNN, bye Felicia. It was nice knowing you. Okay, so now the reality of the speech is, look, I liked it. And I want to give Biden credit because it's rare when a politician does the right thing, let alone, and the more powerful the politician is, the more rare it is that they'll do the right thing. And Biden looks strong. I'm shocked to report that. Shocked to report it, but he kind of does. So is he really dark, Brandon? Are you kidding me? Look at what he said there. It's still, for us, now the real world, it's still soft. He said, no, MAGA Republicans are not a majority of Republicans. Absurd, according to the polling, they're 95% of Republicans. But whoever is the genius behind the scenes that convinced Joe Biden that MAGA is only 25% of the Republican Party, thank you. Otherwise, he would have never criticized them because he loves Republicans so much. Even in that speech, he's like, no, the majority of Republicans are awesome. I love those Republicans. The majority of Republicans, yeah. And even that was, by the way, too partisan and harsh for CNN, right? No, the reality is, no, MAGA's the entire Republican Party. So he should be making this speech about the entirety of the party, but I'll take it. So it's not really dark Brandon, and we joke around about that. It's more like off-white Brandon, just a little darker than what we normally get.
Yeah, I love the dark Brandon rhetoric. I am deep in the memes on Twitter, but I want to zoom out for a second. If we look at the progress we made following the civil rights movement in the 60s, we really saw a growth in civil rights being observed and reflected in law in the United States. And for many white supremacists, this felt like oppression. Them losing their privilege or the prospect of equality was something that they really hated. And a lot of them took to right-wing extremism, fell into the demagoguery of Trump, and they still follow him today. And in a similar vein, I would say, they have been privileged to have Biden be so weak, to not have him calling it what it is, when it's fascism, when it's a threat to democracy, when the Dems have been so weak. Now that they are finally just telling basic truths about what is going on in our country, which Biden did multiple times in this speech, which is something that we've all been asking him to do on the Young Turks for quite some time. We have to call that a win. But it's not really Biden being amazing, as Cenk said. It's off-white Brandon, not dark Brandon. It's him doing the bare minimum, which is something to celebrate at this point, because for so long we've had the Dems being so weak and not calling the rise of fascism in the United States precisely what it is.
100%. Yeah, I think so. And actually, we're critiquing the truth of dark Brandon. I have one extra critique I want to lodge, but first I want to turn to a part of the speech that's really not going to be acknowledged at all. Everyone is of course focusing on him attacking the Republicans, but much of the speech was him attempting to appeal to people's hopes for the future, optimism for the future, as well as sketching out what he has already accomplished. But let's go to a little bit more of the positive part of the speech.
America's often made the greatest progress coming out of some of our darkest moments, like you're hearing that bullhorn. I believe we can and must do that again. We're going to create millions of new jobs in a clean energy economy. We're going to think big. We're going to make the 21st century another American century, because the world needs us to. That's where we need to focus our energy. Not in the past, not on divisive culture wars, not on the politics of grievance, but on a future we can build together.
Okay, so that part of the speech was about unity, and it's a part that every single Republican in the country is going to pretend that they couldn't hear it. They could not process that as speech for some reason. But honestly, what I would like to see is a melding of the two parts. So you have the part where he's going hard at the Republicans as a threat to democracy, a group that wants to strip away these rights, and then you have him saying, no, we can have a better future. Well, what if to get to that better future, we need to actually do more, not just in criticizing the Republicans, but doing something about it. You know, if they're trying to make it so that people can't vote or strip away their reproductive rights or make it so they can't marry who they want, then you as an avatar of political power in the executive branch of the government need to do something about that. And the Democrats need to back you up. And if the Democrats aren't gonna do that, as they very often during your first term haven't been willing to do, then now is a time to use those laser eyes, not in the way that is easy, tough for Biden, but easy once they're deployed, which is to go after Trump. That's relatively easy to do. Turn the laser eyes at those in your own party who are obstructing it. If you want to accomplish these things and you need to get past the filibuster or at least carve out areas, then turn it on them. He's not naming those names. Dark Brandon is like full of power and all that, but not enough to actually go after Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin. That's what we need. He's strong in comparison to Biden of 3 months ago, but he's still not actually combative against the people who are doing the most single-handed work to hamstring his agenda going forward.
Yeah, John, last couple of quick points here. First, on your point, I mean, look, let's keep it real. Factually speaking, he's done about 15% of his agenda, which I give him credit. That's probably about 3 times what Obama did. Obama was king of 5% change. But the establishment is making it seem like he did 115% of his agenda. No, he didn't even do $15 minimum wage. He didn't even do voting rights. It was a bare minimum. So like, hey, I like student debt relief. I give credit where credit is due, et cetera. But it was a tiny percent of his agenda. Does he really want to do that agenda? No, he's still the same corporate Biden, right? I'm not going to get enamored by a political speech and think, oh my God, he's so strong. No, he's never going to fight against the corporate Democrats that are actually blocking his so-called agenda, which he actually likes it being blocked, basically, right? So none of those things have changed at all. But the rhetoric has changed, and when it comes to politics, especially electoral politics, with the elections coming up in 2 months, rhetoric matters. It makes a big difference in how people vote. So I'll give you a perfect example, which is this speech and what Biden's been saying lately. So when he called them semi-fascist, he played offense. What happened next? It forced the Republicans to cry about it, and then it forced the rest of the media to cover it because Republicans are crying. So all that anybody heard for the last couple of weeks is semi-fascist, semi-fascist, semi-fascist. And now the question isn't should I vote for Republicans or not? The question is, are Republicans semi-fascist or a quarter fascist or fully fascist? That's the question you want. That's why you play offense. So, and in this case, he gives a speech, and what is everybody talking about today in mainstream news? Is Biden too tough? You love that conversation if you're the Democrats. Is the head of our party too strong? Come on, that's why you play offense, and it works, right? So don't get seduced into thinking Biden did most of his agenda. He most certainly did not, right? But this is good politics, finally. And speaking of finally, Uriah Heep writes in our member section, become a member, be part of the show, tyt.com/join. Anyway, just a thought, Cenk Uygur, speechwriter for Biden, you would see the political universe explode. And that is certainly true, and it's not just me. You give him a strong progressive writer, and all we'll do is play offense, and all these guys will be crying all day long about how the Democrats are too strong, they get too much done for the American people. And all we would do is win, okay? We'd get tired of winning.
Yeah, rhetoric is good. Actually executing on the agenda that you ran on is even better. And I saw a really funny post online that was like, I Bidened all throughout college where I didn't really do much, but then I crushed the midterm. And I would love to see Biden crush the midterm and continue to pass things that he ran on. And he spent a lot of this speech talking about threats to our democracy, voting rights, how people are being put in positions of power. in Republican states to potentially overturn elections. But I remember back in August 2020 when he was on the campaign trail giving a speech to the Teamsters Union, where he said it is just as serious when people bust unions and jeopardize union elections as it is when they do that to Democratic elections for public office. And Labor Day is Monday. Now would be a really good time to send a strong message to all of the people union busting across the country.
Exactly, yeah. You know what, actually, I'm glad that you brought that up because Cenk, you were talking about how rhetoric is important. This is a great opportunity with the midterms coming up. Rhetoric is important and perceptions are important. And as we've started to talk about in the past couple of weeks, the fact that Biden is actually doing a few things has really changed not just the way that we feel about this term, but what's possible going forward. It's making us sort of reevaluate what might be done. And it's producing a little bit of fun online. Let's go to the last video and you'll see an example of what I'm talking about.
Is this unfair to people who paid their student loans or chose not to take out loans?
Is it fair to people who, in fact, do not own multi-billion-dollar businesses that see why these guys give them all a tax breaks? Is that fair? What do you think?
Okay, so look, if the memes haven't already been ruined, they will soon be ruined by bad people. But for now, it is fun, and behind the memes is a truth. More important than just the irony that led to Dark Brandon in the first place. Now it's, well, maybe he could keep this going. Maybe if he gets a taste of people actually thinking that he's tough, that he can accomplish something, maybe that will inspire him to do more going forward. And so I'm just curious what you all think about, like, in 3 months, are we gonna even remember that this happened? Is it gonna feel totally unearned? Or is he going to find other small things that he can occasionally dole out to keep the sense of enthusiasm or optimism going?
Yeah, no. So first of all, I love that clip. That's my favorite Biden clip of all time. If we had that Biden, then I'd be much more enthused, right? But he doesn't really mean it. He'll go back to giving billionaires tax cuts and tax deals and loopholes after the midterms. I'm just keeping it real, okay? So now, on the other hand, John's right. Like when he's tough and it works and he goes up in the polling, that affects him because every politician wants to be popular, needs to be popular in order to win, et cetera. When he did the student debt relief and they were super nervous about that. And as we predicted, it worked. It's made them more popular. And they're like, whoa. So those things do matter and they care about it. But at the end of the day, John, if we're being honest, and that's what we do on TYT, after the elections are over, when he goes to do the rest of his so-called agenda, if they keep the House and the Senate, which are still big ifs, the lobbyists will come in and go, you're not gonna raise minimum wage, you're not gonna give people health care, you're not gonna lower drug prices, and they'll give them millions and millions and millions of dollars to corporate Democrats and Biden, and also Biden, and Biden will not pass any of those things.
Yeah, I think Biden leaning into the Dark Brandon thing as an online strategy to get the youth vote out in the midterms and in 2024 for the Dems is smart, right? Young people love videos like that. They're all over TikTok. But I think Cenk is right because people are in tune with the fact that the Democrats have been saying things that are generally good, things that a lot of young people agree with, but haven't been doing much. And so it's got to be paired with an effective online strategy of Biden calling out corruption and hypocrisy. And I really like that in this speech, he called out the Republicans as lying for power and for profit. The fact that he used the word profit is huge there. But he can't just call out corruption. He can't just say good things. He's got to also do things in tandem with that.
Yeah. And imagine how much more powerful it would be if he would acknowledge the corruption on the Democratic side as well. But look, we want to get into the right-wing reaction of the speech, but I think we should probably take our first break because there's a lot of crying to summarize on the other side. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Joey, baby.
lot of talk about John's looks here. I'm going to try to avoid it, but I'll do the best I can. It's very unfortunate. Okay, but what is also unfortunate? We don't have a Monday show. It's Labor Day. It would be ironic if we did, although we have in the past. Okay, anyways. We probably will in the future. Anyways, but we don't have one on Monday. But it's a good opportunity to check out our podcasting network, okay? And you can listen to all the different shows and catch up then. All right, so members' comments. Rev Cat, the political catboy, says, Cenk, John, and Jessica is a fantastic lineup for the power panel. Fantastic. Cigar Dragon says his speech writers are finally catching on. There you go, it's true. Faro, Blue Blazer Regular says, too bad Biden say the Proud Boys, Boogaloo Boys, Oath Keepers, and 3%ers are the terrorist organizations, and any affiliation with them is prohibited by federal law. Yeah, well, he ain't gonna say that, okay? But I like the way you're thinking. All right, John Bogino says, and by the way, I wouldn't do that unless I had all the facts lined up on that. It's not a light thing to say. John Bogino says, I like Biden's speech, but I was so distracted by atrocious lighting. The background was red and he was green. Maybe that subconsciously triggered MAGA. Yeah, Jumbo, I noticed your name's not really Jumbo. Anyway.
Mr. Jumbo.
Okay.
Jumbo, sir.
Mr. Gino, okay, let me tell you something. So I wondered if that red lighting was to trigger the right wing, or if it was just an accident, or if it was a Dark Brendan reference. Maybe we'll talk about it in the next segment, but I too wondered if they meant that or not. So now let me go to Twitch. Bob Dragon says, exactly, thank you, John. He's excluding McConnell and his ilk in his mind in this. Of course he is, because he loves McConnell, and McConnell's actually the worst of them. Darth Hollister says, the mainstream media may have the power of the big banks, but we have the power that is the one and only Burbank. Oh, I like where that went. That was a good twist. The DeGasser says, Dark Brandon, maybe more like dark baby gloves. Interesting. It's just Vegas says, CNN seems to be pushing a right-wing agenda lately. My mother watches and says they're telling the truth. I feel bad telling her they're lying. It's begun. They're now brainwashing people to be right wing. Okay, we'll fight back. That's right. Killer says, but again, Biden is putting out a half-assed approach, just like in neoliberal fashion. They're not semi-fascist. They are fascist. I know, brother. One thing at a time. You can call me Jess. Says, Cenk for Biden chief of staff. Yes. Could you imagine? But
I can't.
Look, it wouldn't do any good unless the person meant it. But if he actually wants to pass those laws, yeah. Then I step aside, Butch. I got this. Poycat says it's so sad that doing the bare minimum seems like a huge win. Pathetic. Where are these alleged John comments?
We're running out.
We're out of time. Back on the Young Turks. Cenk Uygur, John Iadarola, Jessica Burbank, Troy Lavelle, Richard Lander, Jen K Comedy, Devin Giddens. Look at all those people who just joined. They hit that join button below. That join button below the video on YouTube. Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. You should check it out. You know what else is beautiful? tyt.com/join. You guys make this show possible. I love you guys. And apparently there's some love back because I'll do one comment from YouTube members. Smokey Eyes wrote in, John is so damn hot. WTF?
These are just facts.
Instead of John, we're gonna go with Dark Jared. That's gonna be your new.
Do I have to be a Jared?
It was the first J name I came
soon.
up with, John.
Let's iterate on it. Let's iterate on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought you said Dark Darren, and I was like, ooh, I could see that being John's alter ego. That could work.
Need some laser eyes.
Hashtag Dark Darren. Let's work on it. Yeah. All right, but let's do the stories.
Okay, let's do that. But I do have some bad news for you. I know America is currently suffering from out of control flooding. Well, get ready to be deluged by conservative tears as we launch into this.
des Volkes, gib du jetzt deine Stimme ab. Wenn ja, dann tritt für mich ein, so wie ich für dich eingetreten bin.
That is a video where Biden, of course, is Hitler, if you're not understanding the historic reference there, that was shared by Marjorie Greene. Marjorie Greene, of course, is a part of the Republican Party, a party that is spending all of today saying that declaring them semi-fascists or a potential threat to democracy is out of bounds, but turning Joe Biden into Hitler and spreading that on social media is apparently fully acceptable. That doesn't honestly even stand out from other right-wingers. They are losing their ever-loving minds over this Biden speech. Here's a little mashup for you.
That the Republican Party today is dominated, driven, and intimidated by Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans. And that is a threat to this country.
Yeah, they're a threat, says the guy with the blood red Nazi background and Marines standing behind him.
The imagery there was almost satanic with that blood red lighting and the two Marines behind him. It was just insane.
The idea he would give such a massively partisan speech that degraded half of the country in the eyes of the world, I don't know any Democrat that can stand by that and say that that was okay.
So this speech is easily the most disgraceful speech from a president in recent decades. It is horrifying how he is issuing a call to war against every single American who didn't vote for him.
President Biden tonight gave the speech of a dictator in the style of a dictator, in the visual of a dictator, using the words of a dictator. This was his enemies of the state speech. And like every other radical Marxist tyrant, he accused his opponents of being fascist while he engages in repressive authoritarian behavior.
I think that baby Voldemort's got a good point there. No, it's ridiculous. If it sounds like they did not listen to the same speech as you, it's because they didn't listen to the speech. Let's be very clear about that. They weren't actually responding to it. Tucker Carlson, while he's up next to me, led off his show saying, we're gonna dive deep into Biden's speech, and then went more than half of the runtime not playing a single second of it. He had thoughts about it, but he literally was not watching it. It was being broadcast while he was live, and yet he had many thoughts about the speech that he wasn't actually listening to. These are, of course, all right-wing commentators that sat happily by for all of these debate performances, campaign speeches, and rallies from Donald Trump, mocking the physically disabled, pitching all Democrats as horrible people, and then not just saying things, but doing things, actually working to strip away rights, putting religious ideologues on the Supreme Court, having as your only domestic infrastructure goal the creation of a multi-billion-dollar wall to keep out the people you label illegals casually. So spare me, honestly, the supposed tears. Stephen Miller would have loved every bit of that if it had been delivered by Trump. It just wouldn't have had any of the sting of actually identifying a true threat to democracy in that case.
Yeah, I think half the people in those clips know, of course, that they're playing games, and Stephen Miller said one thing that is true. He said, look, the oldest trick for people who want to be authoritarian is to call their opponents what they are, which is ironically exactly what he was doing in that appearance. He was an integral part of Donald Trump's presidency, and he pushed a fake elector scheme, which would have literally done a coup against our democracy. He pushes for an authoritarian leader in Donald Trump, and then he says, oh, look, Biden's doing it. And then he tells you his own strategy as if Biden believes it, right? So that was really meta. But I think half of them, guys, are genuinely shocked. And I know why. Because right-wingers have a sense of entitlement in this country. The Democrats and the left are not allowed to fight back. That they could say anything they want about Democrats. They could say that they're child molesters and they're baby killers and criminals and rapists and the worst people. They could say anything, the most outrageous things about Democrats. But if a Democrat ever says anything about Republicans, they go, oh my God, they have offended half the country. Well, how about when you were calling half the country baby killers and all the other unbelievable things you've said over the last 40 years? they feel like, no, I have a right to do that. I have a right to punch you in the face, but you don't ever have a right to talk back to me because I'm in charge.
Yep.
Now, super sad day for the right wing. No, you're not. We do get to talk back to you. You're not the boss of us. And they've gotten smug and used to that entitlement because Democrats have not fought back in 40 goddamn years. When Biden half fights back, this is not a majority of Republicans are wonderful people. The majority of Republicans, my ass, they're wonderful people. They're awful people, right? But he says the majority are good, but less than half are problematic because they just tried to overturn our democracy. And they're like, this is the most divisive speech in decades. You never saw Donald Trump's speech? They're just amazing.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch them try and brand run-of-the-mill neoliberal democracy as fascism, which might be something that would be kind of easy to do if we were living in a country where most people were to the left of neoliberal democracy. But when we have actual fascists on the far right, by comparison, it's not so easy to do. But I bet people will watch these news segments, not watch the speech, and just believe them at their word. And that's really scary. It's not really about the lighting in the speech. They're trying to frame Biden as an authoritarian leader because he says he's going to uphold elections and make sure that public resources sometimes go to things that benefit people and sometimes regulate corporations. And to us on the actual left that want to see the actual will of the people reflected in their government, the speech doesn't go far enough, and that's very clear. And it's very run-of-the-mill neoliberal democracy to the point that he's still calling the United States a democratic experiment and we're the country that's a beacon on the hill. And he makes a point to very clearly call out political violence, which is the same rhetoric that they pushed during the Black Lives Matter movement. We know that in the United States, we've had a lot of one-sided state violence, and when people stand up to that, things like the destruction of property is framed as terribly violent revolutionary behavior, when in reality it's a response to people being murdered by the state. So Biden's speech was not terribly far right. It was pretty much down the middle, calling for unity by just saying, we need to actually have fair elections, not making any big, bold promises other than to transition to renewable energy, but that wasn't really backed with any details of the plan. So it's insane to watch them brand this speech as extremist when it is the most purely centrist thing I've heard in a long time.
Yeah, and when we respond with like, have they been listening to Donald Trump? You might come away, if you haven't been following every step along the way, that, oh, so they're saying that I guess everybody does it. That's very clearly not what we're saying. What Biden is doing is not throwing substance-free slurs at the other side. He's identifying the actual intent of this movement on the right. They do want to end democracy. Perhaps not via coup next time, that would be nice. But they definitely want your vote to not actually count for anything, even less than it does now. That is actually true. When Donald Trump stands on the stage and appeals to the QAnon crowd, or has his crowd chant "lock her up" about conspiracy theories about Hillary Clinton, that is not the same thing as accurately describing what a political movement is trying to accomplish. So this is not whataboutism. They are very different things. But I want to give you just a couple more responses to it. It came not just on Fox News. Ben Shapiro, who has always been a very big critic of Trump when he goes too far, tweeted, "That was the most demagogic, outrageous, and divisive speech I have ever seen from an American president. I apologize if I'm not really selling the Ben Shapiro thing. Imagine that I've slowed it down by about 2 times. Joe Biden essentially declared all those who oppose him and his agenda enemies of the republic. Truly shameful." No, he didn't do that, and he didn't do that because you said essentially, and the reason you wrote essentially in your tweet is because you know that Donald Trump literally called groups in America the enemy of the people hundreds of times, and you never raised a single objection to it. Thus the flaccid essentially in your tweet. But Donald Trump also posted about it, not on Twitter because he's not allowed on there, and that remains fun to this day, saying, "If you look at the words and meaning of the awkward and angry Biden speech tonight, he threatened America, including with the possible use of military force. He must be insane or suffering from late stage dementia, and might I add, person, woman, man, camera, TV." Yes, he's threatening with military force. I mean, come on, do we seriously have to respond to Whether Biden was threatening to deploy the military against the American people, that isn't actually what he was doing. Now, Donald Trump frequently fantasized about putting the military in the streets, whether for ostentatious North Korean-esque military parades or to crush social justice protests. Again, it is all projection, undiluted.
Dark Jackson.
Oh, we have a Jackson here.
So what I'm seeing from all the right wing is them basically saying, how dare they fight back? Don't they know their place? They're supposed to just have us pummel them and just sit there and take it and tell America how great we are. No, sorry. For the first time, Joe Biden hasn't done that. That's what he normally does. But he gave a speech that went a quarter of the way to being honest. And guys, look, when we talk about threat to democracy, so look, a couple of the commentators there that you saw with your own eyes, and then Donald Trump talked about a call that Biden was doing, a call to war, and he threatened to use military force. Did he actually say any of that in the speech? Absolutely not. You can watch the speech for yourself. You see that. There's none of it. It's just totally made up. But it is what we talked about earlier. It is projection, right? So they want, Donald Trump literally said, go down to the Capitol. When he heard that his own vice president might be murdered, he said he didn't mind. So there's been a literal call to violence from Trump over and over and over again. Lindsey Graham talking about how there's going to be riots in the streets if you dare hold Trump accountable, etc. They're obviously projecting. And did we always say that Donald Trump was a threat to democracy? Like, that we say it, to John's point, that we say it without substance, just like they say it without substance? Absolutely not. Go back and see during the 2016 election when I definitely wanted Trump to lose, and I did 100 loser Donald segments. Did I ever say that he was a threat to democracy? No. You know why? Because at that point, I didn't know he was a threat to democracy. I just thought he was an incompetent, evil, stupid, immoral guy. Okay, that shouldn't be anywhere near power. But I didn't think he wasn't gonna leave office. That he was gonna ask his crowd to do a riot, maybe hang his vice. I didn't think any of that, because I hadn't seen an inclination towards that. Now we see it, so you actually point out facts. Facts matter, they matter. But CNN will tell you now, because they have a new Republican owner, a 50-50, I can't tell. And in fact, they did do that. Several different people today on CNN talking about, Biden's gone too far. He's such a meanie. I can't believe he's doing that. So it's absolutely absurd. And the talk about enemies of the state, they're kind of rubbing it in your face that they're liars. So both Trump and Stephen Miller, you talking about, especially Stephen Miller in that clip that you saw, he knows, he wrote the lines about Democrats and media being enemies of the state when he was running for Donald Trump. So he goes on there and winks to the people who know, but he knows the audience doesn't know anything because they've been brainwashed by right-wing media and they don't know a goddamn thing. So he goes, Biden is calling for his opponents to be enemies of the state. Wink. That is so bad. Wink. I can't believe they're offending your feelings. Wink. But the audience doesn't know he's winking. They really think, because this is the only thing they're seeing. If you watch Tucker Carlson's segment, remember his entire audience is 100% brainwashed. You would have thought that it was Hitler's speech and that Biden was saying, I'm going to come. And he made it seem like the Biden was going to send soldiers to your house and maybe even attack you, physically attack you. They think that Biden's about to march in the goddamn streets with the military. And by the way, what happens at the end of right-wingers thinking that? They grab their guns.
Super last thing, I would say comparatively globally, Americans have been pretty comfortable. We haven't had relative political instability. And the idea that we could become the kind of country where democracy fails and we are terribly politically unstable to the point that there's violence in the streets scares a lot of Americans. Not only that, Joe Biden in this speech pointed out how the right has taken many of our basic rights and freedoms away via their control of the Supreme Court. And so what mainstream media, especially Fox, is trying to do here is get people to not watch the speech because they don't want people to hear those narratives. They are afraid. But I think it could backfire because they're saying all of this crazy stuff about what happened in the speech, but the clips don't reflect any of that crazy stuff happening. So they're effectively teasing the speech, and more people might end up actually tuning into the speech because of it.
Yeah. That's also true. Yes, super last thing. Tucker Carlson also told you that the people at the George Floyd protests were gonna march into your house and pull you out of your beds. He said the same thing effectively about the mandatory vaccination squads that were gonna come around. They just keep saying it and they keep gobbling it up. It's weird how that works. Okay, with that said, why don't we? Okay. We're gonna take a break. When we come back though, low-key, one of the most important bits of political news, a development coming out of the raid of Mar-a-Lago. We'll give you all the details after this.
Amazing.
All right, first of all, don't forget, Nia Turner's show Unbossed is coming up in October. We especially need you to subscribe on YouTube, but if you go to tyt.com/unbossedtyt, it'll show you how to do that, how to follow her on all those different platforms. But just click on the YouTube thing on that page and click on subscribe. Getting to 10,000 subscribers is really important so that other people can see the show. That's just honestly an algorithm thing. Anyway, tyt.com/unbossedtyt. Get hyped and go there and help, and it'll just take 5 seconds. Okay, now I go to YouTube members. Mr. Gino says, "Oh, did conservatives get their feelings hurt again?" LMAO. I feel the same way, and so does my A. Antifa writes in, "I'm so relieved Joe Brandon is finally calling them fascist and naming them." Greg Hill says, "Just what you'd expect from bullies used to not getting pushback." Totally right. Classic bully behavior. Exoteric Dragon says, "President Joe hella late to the party, Biden taking a stand." Well, he stood there anyway. Night Parade Dragon says, "I want to make a D&D party. I war-fogged bear on Mad Honey." I have no idea what these words mean.
I do.
Wolfpack Rogue, an Antifa Paladin, an Unboss Fighter, and a Raid Gopher Wizard. John, help me out. Roll for initiative. Love TYT.
I like it. I will join that party or DM it, whichever you want.
All right, okay, so that's a party now. I like the Wolfpack part, even though I understood none of it. Crowded Crow says, yes, Jessica was gifted with fabulous bone structure and even finer brain, if you ask me. Solid Crusader 89 says, now Biden has to focus on increasing minimum wage. Here. Nicolette Haredi says, I just picked up my son from his very first day of kindergarten. I've been missing the live shows and I'm glad to be back today. Have a great weekend. On Super Chat, Most Wise One wrote in, call me out, I don't care. Biden had a great speech. He's a good leader. Progressives need to jump on the Biden wave. Carlson has the right only under the First Amendment. No, Carlson has a First Amendment right. He's allowed to lie on air, just buyer beware. In terms of the speech, look, brother, we'll take it. We'll take it. The student debt relief, I wish it was more. We'll take it. God bless. I love that he's fighting back. I don't want you to misinterpret. We would go harder, but we'll take what he's done so far for sure, okay? Skochi Nakayobro says, what better way to spend a Friday evening than smoking a J, sipping on some Jack and watching TYT? right, back on TYT, Cenk, John, and Jessica with you guys, but also, who do we got? Nico Juiced and David Hughes just became members. So are they American heroes? I guess. No, I don't even guess. I'm sure they are. They hit the join button below the video on YouTube. You can do likewise, tyt.com/join. Be part of the honest reporting, bringing truth to the country. John.
Let's do it. Okay, let's jump into some fun news. The FBI raid of Mar-a-Lago turned up literally hundreds of classified documents. You know that by now, and that is important because that's evidence of many crimes that Trump knowingly committed, considering that those documents remained in Mar-a-Lago following multiple conversations he had with groups dispatched to recover them. But it turns out that what they didn't find might actually be spicier. Take a look at what was revealed when a judge uncovered more of the inventory of what they found during the raid. This graphic is telling. It catalogs the contents of item number 2, which is a box from Trump's office. And what it shows is that there were 43 empty folders that were marked classified. Do you get what that means? That means that there were dozens and dozens of folders that contained classified documents that now do not contain classified documents. And it is possible, conceivable, that some of those documents were taken out and put elsewhere, put into the storage room, thrown on the floor, God only knows, put in his mouth, chewed up, spit into the toilet. I don't know. But it's also possible that there had been documents in those many, many folders, and they were taken out and they were put somewhere. We don't know where necessarily. Some of them might have been recovered, but we don't know for sure. And so it is possible that there are many more classified documents remaining outstanding, either at Mar-a-Lago or some other Trump property. And I know that along the way, they've unveiled little bits of information about this investigation. I would really love an update on what they think about the contents of those folders.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna layer one on top of that, John, and I'm a little afraid to do it, but I'll do that in a second. But first, imagine if a Democrat had taken classified secrets home in a file labeled classified or top secret, and then they wouldn't give it back, even though the government was saying that is our top secrets. You must give the national secrets back. And the Democrat, Hillary Clinton, Barack Obama, Hunter Biden, you name a person they hate, right? Michelle Obama for no reason. And she's like, no, I'm not giving the national secrets back. Yeah, when we were in the White House, I took them, so what? And then the FBI is forced to raid her home, and they find a lot of the top secret stuff that we had that was totally unguarded, and God knows why she took it in that weird analogy where I'm saying it's Michelle Obama, right? And then some of the nuclear secrets are missing. Well, I don't know if those particular classified documents are the nuclear secrets, but certainly classified, there are 48 folders of classified documents are missing. What would the Republican reaction be? Their heads would explode. She's selling them, we knew it, traitors, right? If it was Hunter Biden, Michelle Obama, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, it doesn't matter. They would lose their minds. And right now they would have the gallows ready. They'd be talking about hanging them, killing them, butchering them, etc. Trump does it. They're like, no, you're supposed to take the classified secrets and then hide them and never give the government and maybe give it to our enemies, because that's what a patriot would do. There is no talking sense to Republicans. All of them have lost their minds. If you were 1% fair or objective here, you would say, what the, why are there still missing classified documents? You lunatic, give them back, you moron, you goddamn criminal, give them back, okay? So John, the part that I could layer on that is, I'm a little dangerous, it's a little dangerous, I'm afraid to do it, is Trump also says, yeah, it doesn't matter, I declassified all of them. And Bill Barr today was saying, if he did that, that's even more dangerous. Because Republicans, if you really believe he declassified them, can anybody that's seen them in the American government, left or right, just start publishing them on the internet if they're declassified? That, you don't want that. Nobody wants that. And that makes it super clear. No, they're not declassified. The guy's an obvious freaking liar. But I'm afraid to say it because now the right wing might think, who cares? Put the nuclear secrets online. Ha ha, we trolled them.
Listen, I don't know a lot about the protocols for what happens when a former leader steals classified documents, but I don't think the FBI does either. I don't know why we're in the midterms. Donald Trump left the White House a long time ago. Why did it take so long for people to notice they're missing? This should have been a problem a long time before now. That's very concerning. Trump had plenty of time to share these documents out with the many foreign nationals who come through Mar-a-Lago. He could have used a copy machine. We're in a modern era, not hard to do that. He could have handed them out to his buddies. And let's be honest, there are a lot of people in the international arena who are not big fans of the United States because we really haven't been the nicest guy to other countries abroad. And they might want to use this classified information, especially nuclear secrets, against us. This is a huge problem, and I have no idea why it took us until the point that the documents are missing, not in their folders, lost, to actually raid Mar-a-Lago to get them back.
Yep. I wonder what we're going to find out. Did they recover them? Are they in New York? Are they in Trump Tower? Are they buried in a golf course somewhere? Highly suspicious.
In his wallet.
In his wallet, exactly. I mean, yeah, he could have copied them. He could start truthing them out at any moment.
Yeah.
Look, guys, everybody's ignoring the elephant in the room because the media is so afraid of saying it, and they're going to get attacked by the right wing endlessly. The most likely answer is he was trying to sell them, and that actually does make him a traitor.
I'm not entirely sure about that. I think it is possible that he just cares so little about it that he wants it. It's mine. I'll have it, even if he didn't intend to give it out. So we defer a little bit there, but.
No, but John, I'm not entirely sure either. But if you think a guy obsessed with money, who thinks he's above the law, wouldn't consider selling them, you don't know Donald Trump.
That's true. That's true. Well, either way, the crime is the same. Regardless of what his motivation was, the crime is the same. Okay, with that said, well, I suppose there could be additional crimes if he was selling them abroad. But anyway, for now, why don't we move on to a fun topic to close out this first hour. One man on Reddit is apparently facing a bit of a dilemma when it comes to the future of his relationship and the obstacle between him and his girlfriend, and it centers on her finances. He shared his story on Reddit, and here is a bit of that. He says, I've been in a relationship for nearly 3 years. I'm 31, my partner is 25. I've recently started to look at where things are going for us if we take the next step, and I started to get a little fearful. I have absolutely no debt, car is paid off, and make $85,000 a year, medical field, with an emergency fund and about $25K in investments. I have worked extremely hard to get to the position I am in so I can eventually provide for a family and chase financial dreams like owning rental properties, etc. Very specific. But there is a problem. His girlfriend has $220,000 in student loan debt and $2,000 in credit card debt. She's currently in school and expects to make $75K a year and pay $2,500 a month in loans for a decade after she graduates. So all that being true, according to him, he says, I truly love this girl. She has so many qualities I never thought I would find in a partner, but this debt is something that I feel will really hinder the quality of my life due to the fact that with those monthly payments, she basically won't be able to save any money at all for 10 years. He adds, I should note that I'm a specialist in my field, medical, and should see my income increase over the next few years to around 110K to 125K. And there was a bit of a split in terms of the comments about what he should do, but there were many who felt like this is a good reason to leave your partner. You might like them, you might have a good relationship, but that is simply too big of a barrier. You should cut the rope. What do you both think?
Okay, I'm super curious what Jessica thinks. I'm also super curious what you guys think. Because I'm old school on this, and so I really wonder how different our opinions might be. Anyways, that's why we're doing a poll. Whenever we're not sure, we do the poll. Should you base your decision of marriage on how much debt your partner has? Yes or no? tyt.com/polls. We'll always put the polls and petitions in the description box below. If you're watching later on YouTube or Facebook, make sure you click that. It's super easy. Okay, now. My opinion is, wow. First, let's note that we're in late stage capitalism when people are making decisions based on how much debt they've accrued under corporate rule. But in terms of should they, no, the old school way of thinking is, no, that's outrageous. You should, if you like your partner and you love your partner and you guys get along great, you'll work it out together. Really? You're gonna dump someone because they have student debt? I'm actually stunned by that.
Yeah, I agree with Jake. I am also stunned by it. Can you imagine this origin story getting broken up with this way? I love you, but I really want to be a landlord. She's going to be an unstoppable organizer. I cannot imagine what she would do next. But it's sad that economic hardship is such a strain on love and relationships in our society. It's definitely late stage capitalism, and it's just sad. But if material conditions are determining the relationship, did you really love them in the first place? Maybe not. I think what we're experiencing here is very few people do real love anymore. A lot of people that I meet are caught up in the idea of being in a thing, getting into a relationship. A lot of people are in relationships and then they post it all on social media, and then you talk to them in person and they're terribly unhappy. In Sweden, there's really interesting research about people getting married at lower rates when they remove the tax benefit of getting married. And so I think it's a problem that love is dying, and I'm gonna blame capitalism.
Exactly. Yeah, think about it. Brandon had a chance to save love in America, but what is $10,000 gonna do for this woman? Maybe 20K. I don't know if she's got Pell Grants. I'll have to search on Reddit. But yeah, for someone like that, it doesn't seem like that much relief. I think that if you were to poll people honestly, not have them self-report, but actually tap into their brain, and I'm in favor of the government doing that, then I think a lot of people would actually heavily consider this. But I would say for at least a couple of reasons, it isn't necessarily wise. Partially because, like, you're planning for your rental properties. Have you looked at the world around us? How much longer do you think this thing is gonna go? Just pick someone you like hanging out with and ride out the last couple of years until we're all searching for like spooled copper wire and water and halves of old discarded protein bars. Like, the debt's not gonna count for anything when civilization falls, so you've got that to look forward to. But also, like, it is a financial obstacle, it is. But you're almost certainly gonna face those anyway. Like, think about how common medical bankruptcy is. We're all just a couple more years of Jack in the Box from $200,000 in medical debt. You at least have the comfort of already knowing what the major financial albatross around your neck is, instead of, I don't know, like going underwater on your rental property or whatever. I think it's a safe bet. If you actually like this person, that is rare enough, that's valuable. It might even be worth a couple $100,000.
I like what John points out here. Don't you want someone to love while the world is smoldering around us? It's so romantic. But it's interesting, Jake and I both say, like, it's old school to believe in real love and forget about, the material conditions of the relationship. If you really love them, be with them. But actually, is that a new thing? Because I know that for many, many years, marriage was an economic arrangement, right? There are a lot of arranged marriages. It's super traditional. And the nuclear family structure was definitely something that was pushed for the benefit of work structures and capitalism. So maybe love is the future, actually.
Okay, first of all, I like that John is being called smoldering in some weird way that he started. Okay,
stick, because I'm gonna put it in my Twitter bio.
In fact, one of our members on Twitch, Cody the Epilepsy Dragon, wrote in, is it just me or is Johnny Pie being seductive by having an extra button undone?
Is it? No, this is.
People want to know, John.
I have to fact check you. This is not an extra button. This would be an extra, but no, I'm kidding. I'm not gonna do that. We don't have time. We don't have time for you to process what you'd see.
Don't do it, brother. Don't do it. Don't make me do it. Don't make me do it.
I don't want to make you do it.
Don't make me. Okay, so, but last thing, guys. Look, I know that money matters. Of course, we all know that money matters, and it's at the very least in the back of our minds, and we think about it subconsciously. That's why when you have the tax incentives, it does move the numbers. It sucks that it moves the numbers, but it does, right? I think what I was surprised by was how cold the guy was. Like, he's like, I did the math on it and I put it on a spreadsheet. I put a pin in it, I circled back to it later and realized the numbers just aren't matching up here, so I've got to let her go, right? And then, okay, so that's one dude, right? But the crowd reaction of like, dump her, right? Because she has too much debt, as if it was her fault. That's what I was surprised by. And I hope that's not a phenomenon that's catching on. And if it is, I think it's probably a sad indictment of our current society.
I agree, although let's not be too hard on the guy. Like, he at least required her to pass $200,000 in debt before he's ready to cut loose. Leonardo DiCaprio, like once you're aged enough that you can rent a car, that's all it takes. No debt necessary. Even if you could afford the car, you're gone.
Yep.
Anyway.
Will Dark Brandon save love and keep his campaign promise of canceling student loan debt? Stay tuned. We'll see.
Oh my God, you're right. Joe Biden could save this marriage. Joe, you gotta do it now. Cancel all the debt. Let him go. You know, by the way, if that became a national story about whether these guys were gonna get married or not, it would totally affect the country in whether they wanted to cancel all student debt or not.
Oh, let's spread
People are funny creatures. We should almost try.
Yeah, we should. That's all the time we have.
We're out of time and we're out of comments talking about John's looks. So, okay, I've had enough. We're gonna move on. All right, everybody check out Jessica on Rebel headquarters. She's doing amazing videos there. You guys will love those. John's, of course, the legendary host of the Damage Report and the father of all dragons, okay? So everybody check out Damage Report. Now, by the way, starting in October, it's gonna go Damage Report, Indisputable, Unbossed with Nina Turner, back to back to back. It's gonna be awesome, okay?
And the watch list, Jank. And the watch list.
And that's true. It starts with the watch list and then goes to the Damage Report. What a squad! What a lineup! I love it. Okay, everybody, check that out. We'll be right back.
Our system is inherently rigged against the will of the people.
They have 50% of the vote, and in a democracy, they should have 50% of the seats.
But if you live in an insanely gerrymandered district, your vote functionally doesn't matter.
We drew the map in a way that even though we get 50% of the vote, we're gonna get 13 out of the 18 seats.
You don't actually have the ability to translate the will of the voters in your area into actual government policy.
They should not be allowed to gerrymander these districts. We should actually have a democracy.
Been honest with him, like, yeah, I was upset with you and I shouldn't have done it, but instead I was like, I'm just trying to protect my engagement ring.
At TYT, our mission is to boldly pursue truth, challenge the establishment, and drive positive change. At a time when corporate capture of our media, our government, and our politics is nearly absolute, everyday working people need a champion to fight for them and to push back against the powerful interests that threaten our democracy itself. At TYT, we're proudly progressive and call out corruption and duplicity wherever we see it, from Republicans, Democrats, or anyone else. And unlike mainstream news media outlets, we're not beholden to corporate advertisers, to defense contractors, to Wall Street, or to big pharma. We only have to answer to our audience, and for nearly 2 decades, we've accomplished that by delivering honest, timely, and insightful perspectives on the day's news without fear or favor or concern for whose toes we might step on or which powerful elites we might offend. And while we're super serious about the news, we also manage to do it in a way that is fun and lighthearted. We can do this together and serve our audience, and yes, have fun doing it.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K-12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians. It frightens you. But we coming. When you are in a privileged position, equality looks like oppression to you. The Karenicity runs deep in this one. We provide a mirror for reflection and a mirror for correction.
So what if I have 35? Don't hit. Don't touch me. Don't touch me.
So let's put up the graphic of this Karen in peak performance. Boom. They want anarchy so they can start creating their own rules.
Can you share with me some examples?
When they were running around during the terrorist attack on January 6th saying, hang Mike Pence. So those are the people I'm talking about. That's a problem, correct? You work for Mike Pence, stand up for the guy. Do not allow the ideology of politics to evaporate the humanity that still exists inside of you. They don't stop, I don't stop. Racism won't stop, I won't stop. Systemic bias won't stop, so I won't stop. People still need health care, so I won't stop. People still need criminal justice systems reformed in this country, so I won't stop. And you won't stop either.
Just remember, don't pop any bubble wrap because all that air comes from China.
Another good point.
Drop it. All right, Young Turks, Jake Huger, J.R. Jackson, Ravana. What a power panel. Love it. Love it.
The magic of the power panel. Suddenly there's two new folks. It's just crazy how this works.
The magic of it, the magic of it. All right, listen guys, we got a crazy hour ahead for you guys, let alone the story that I mentioned in the beginning. We're gonna do in the bonus episode, the funniest story of the year, including the funniest pictures you'll ever see. I said it. Perfect time to become a member, tyt.com/join, because you guys get that story first. Or just hit the join button below as Siberiuk Kavonik just did. Look at that, getting bigger every day, too strong. JR, what's the news?
As you said, the funniest story of the year, any of these could be considering how ridiculous these things are, specifically about our former President of the United States. Let's go straight into this one.
Will look very, very favorably about full pardons. If I decide to run and if I win, I will be looking very, very strongly about pardons.
Amen.
Full pardons.
Well deserved.
I think that's probably going to be the best, because even if they go for 2 months or 6 months, I mean, they have sentences that go a lot longer than that.
Years and
but
years.
We'll be looking very, very seriously at full pardons, because we can't let that happen. What's happened here, and I mean full pardons with an apology.
I mean, full pardons with an apology. Former President, let me say that again. Former President Donald Trump is talking about giving pardons. He's not the president. No, he likes to act like it many times. He likes to also act like he's a businessman. That didn't work out either. But he does have plans to pardon people, specifically folks that participated in the January 6th insurrection at his command. Let's get into one of those people that he's looking to pardon at some point in the future, even though he's not running for president at this point, and he definitely is not president, despite what he's saying on Truth Social all the time. So let's talk about this one particular culprit who was actually convicted. Former New York Police Department officer Thomas Webster, who unsuccessfully tried to convince a Washington, D.C. jury, now check this out, that he was merely acting in self-defense against a police officer who he assaulted on January 6th. He was sentenced to 10 years in prison on Thursday. This is the longest sentence of any January 6th defendant so far. Yes, you heard it right, self-defense is what he said. In videos played during his trial, the 56-year-old former Marine can be seen swinging a metal flagpole at DC officer Noah Rathbun before crossing police barriers at the US Capitol and tackling him, choking him with the officer's chin strap. And in May, Webster was found guilty on all 6 charges that he faced, 5 of which were felonies. There's a picture of him in self-defense against a police officer. When's the last time you heard conservatives talk about how someone gets shot in their car as soon as a police officer walks up to them, or maybe in their home in the middle of the night as they're executing raids on their homes, that they were acting in self-defense when they got up? Anyways, let's watch more about what he actually did in the self-defense theory he had going. jump back to Donald Trump really fast, because after you saw that violence, after you saw that self-defense that was going on there, Trump did not stop at talking about pardons for people like this. Yes, he's talking about folks like what we just saw. He's also talking about what he's doing for them financially. I'm not sure how true that is, but he still said it anyway.
I met with, and I'm financially supporting people that are incredible. And they were in my office actually 2 days ago. It's very much on my mind. It's a disgrace what they've done to them. What they've done to these people, it's disgraceful. And I'm looking at it very carefully. I've studied it. I study cases, and contributions should be made. We have to do that because, they have some good lawyers. But even the good lawyers, the
can't
judges,
beat fraudulent judges.
You get before,
Amen.
Yeah, you get some of these judges that are so nasty and so angry and mean.
Notice something there. Donald Trump, and apparently this woman who's very excited that she has to be dancing around saying amen every 5 seconds. Amen, Mr. Trump. His basis for law and order from the Law and Order Party is they've got good attorneys. Not they're within the law, not this other person was not within the law, not the way the system works comes to these conclusions based on the law. It's they've got good attorneys. That's a big window. That's a big illustration of his mindset when it comes to law and order. They've got good attorneys, so I got to find a way around that. Not I have to stay within the law because I'm a law-abiding citizen of the greatest nation in the world. No, it's actually we got to make sure we skirt the law. It's the basis for his entire judicial approach, which one person pointed out on Twitter when it comes to these things about how he's going to offer this support. Last thing here, David Rothkamp points out, so if you're meeting with seditionists and giving them money and promising them pardons, which could be seen as obstruction of justice and support for further anti-government violence, isn't that sedition? What say you, Cenk Uygur?
Yeah, so classic Trump implicating himself in a crime, just saying it on national media. So look, one of the things that they easily could do with Trump, I don't know if they'll have the courage to do, prosecutors, is try him for inciting sedition, right? And that's a very hard thing to prove overall, and it's it's made even harder when you are trying to prosecute a former president for that, right? Except when the former president says, "Oh, I paid for it, and I'm paying for the defense of all the seditionists, including the ones who are being convicted as we speak of that crime and of other crimes. I'm financially supporting them, and by the way, I'm encouraging them so much that if I get back into power, I'll just let them go. I'll pull a Bain and say, Gotham is yours. Do with it as you will." I mean, what kind of that's what Bain does. He just says things out in public, all of his different crimes, right? So this guy's just nuts. I can't believe he's admitting things. And partly the fact that he's never been held accountable, that he's been a spoiled little brat his whole life, and the Democrats never held him accountable, and no prosecutors ever held him accountable, because they're all so afraid of him. Afraid of this paper tiger. It's just maddening. That's why he feels that he can go on Wendy Jablowski's show and tell everybody, yeah, I did it, and I'm gonna do it even worse if you reelect me, okay? And so is her last name really Jablowski? No, I made that up, because I've never heard of her. So I'm gonna say one other random thing, but it's interesting. Look at how Trump and the Republicans support their media. They'll go, Trump was on Real America's Voice or something. I never even heard of that. This Wendy lady is the first time I've ever seen her, and I'm in media. What is she, a competitor? I don't know, I've never heard of her, right? Welcome to America's Basement with Donald Trump, the president, former president, calling it. But I'm saying it in a positive way. He's can you imagine Biden or Obama, former president, going on any online show? Unless the person promises them, I beg, I swear I'll kiss your ass, I swear it, right? But to go on this regularly, this randomly, tiny little shows, it'd be like Obama going on Jimmy Dore's show. Or actually it'd be like Trump going on Jimmy Dore's show. Now that I say it, maybe, Jimmy, give it a shot.
Yeah, you're right. Biden will barely talk to even mainstream media. He barely gives interviews off the cuff. Trump's just going on any podcast called Guns, God, and Gary. Like any person who contacts his media team gets an interview. He was on a podcast called Full Send, which they're just a group of frat boy YouTubers, where he talked about how the YMCA is the gay national anthem. I mean, he's really covering all of his bases across his fandom. It's just ridiculous. But is Trump, if he was reelected, gonna pardon these people? I don't know, probably. Wouldn't surprise me at all. He pardoned so many people, Republican mega donors, people connected with his campaign, just willing to pardon anybody. So it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think he'll get the opportunity to do it. I hope he doesn't get the opportunity to do it, but if he does, I'm sure he will. Is it sedition? Yeah, absolutely. And it'll probably just go on the long list of crimes he committed before he was president, during his presidency, and now after he was president. And it won't change the minds of his supporters. He won't care. They won't care. The right-wing media won't care. They'll just continue to support him. Because they do have this strong mutual support of right-wing candidates, politicians, right-wing media. They do have this strong network in a way that the Democrats they sort of ignore left-wing media that's willing to give them a platform if they're willing to have a conversation. And I do think that's something the Republicans do well. Of course, they do it in a ridiculous way, but I think the Democrats could do better at that.
Donald Trump does a whole lot of talking, Cenk. He does so much talking and incriminating himself, as you're saying. But the thing is I'm wondering what, he pays attention to what the response is. We know that he pays attention to any news reports. We know he pays attention to what politicians, pundits, and anyone says about him, because he's trying to get some kind of, he's worried about how he looks. So when you see how things continue to go badly for you, I know he's an egomaniac. I know he never thinks anything is his fault. But who's left to blame, bro? You've got a former OA and anchor as one of your defense attorneys who screwed you over, yes, in that whole search warrant, as she signed off saying, yeah, that's everything, and then went on TV stumbling and bumbling every opportunity she get. So at some point, don't you go, yeah, everyone that surrounded me, that gave their life to me, is screwed, and everyone else who doesn't know what they're doing, that I continue to surround myself with, is screwing me. Maybe it's me. Like, who's left to blame? There's no one left.
Yeah. I will say one last quick thing. The reality is actually, and everybody that is on the inside, right wing or not, says the same thing about Trump. He's actually scared to death of the courthouse, right? And that's why the prosecutors are maddening. Someone have the courage to prosecute him for obvious crimes he's admitting on tape, please. Why is he afraid of the courthouse? Because if you're outside of the courthouse, lying has no implication, no consequence. You just lie all day long, and that's what he does. And he's a pathological liar. He couldn't help himself, even if you put him on the stand. But if you put him on the stand and he lies, or he's in a trial and he lies, that actually does have consequences. And that brings me back to what JR mentioned about the guy who got put away today. He said, no, I didn't attack the cop. I was trying to help the cop. And then prosecutors rolled the tape of him beating the crap out of the cop, and he got 10 years. That's called consequences. And that's what Trump's afraid of. Someone, please give it to him.
It's just the way these things work. Let's take our first break, huh? Let's jump out of really fast. Let's take our first break. A few comments from you guys also. When we do come back though, Tucker Carlson has found someone, as I mentioned, that could be the culprit, maybe for all this craziness. He's still mad about President Biden and his speech, calling out many MAGA Republicans for who they are. But there's actually someone that's really the real puppet master over President Biden. You're gonna be surprised to hear who that is when we come back.
All right, the planet's on fire. Meanwhile, the big banks, a lot of us have money in the big banks. Unfortunately, they take our money and they use it for massive fossil fuel projects. It's just a fact. In fact, since the Paris Climate Accords, they've used it to finance $3.8 trillion in fossil fuel projects. Aspiration does not do that. They don't allow your money to go to fossil fuel company investments, private prisons, gun manufacturers, none of those bad guys. So you have tremendous peace of mind. Plus, you could plant trees, save the environment. You could do a carbon offset. So you offset all of your carbon use for the month. I love that. And so if you're progressive, if you care about the planet at all, is a perfect place to put your money. Aspiration.com/TYT. Aspiration.com/TYT. Okay, now let's go to comments. Let's go to Super Chat first. Galaxy M says, does the TYT community need a dark Burbank emoji with laser eyes? Of course. Okay, that's really funny. I don't want to get it dark, each one of us. God knows what that leads to. Anyways, Undecided Right said, if this was the other way around, people would tell her to cut her losses. I say he shouldn't get married until the debt is manageable. Okay, that's an interesting point. That's the story we did in the first hour about the guy saying she has too many debts. If the guy had too many debts, a lot of people would say cut your losses to the woman. So I hadn't thought of that. That's why I love asking our audience. Anthony McClendon says, great power panel about the first hour, also true of the second hour. Jenkins, 2 members of the Connecticut crew, Biden finally waking up, must be listening to those young White House staffers. More MAGA tears to flavor your too strong coffee, Jenk. Hashtag Connecticut strong. I love it, you're right. TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Unabashed progressives, giving money to progressive causes. Most delicious coffee, everything made it. These mugs are beautiful, handmade, made in America. Okay, TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. Thank you for the good setup to the plug. Appreciate it. Mr. Gino says Biden finally spoke up because he's probably going to run again. It does no one any good to wait to stand up, speak up against evil. No matter why he's doing it, I'll take it. Arsto says, did Biden having COVID cause the emergence of Dark Brandon? I don't know about that, but he's so energized and so coherent lately. I was like, is there some medication going on here? I don't know if it was because of COVID or something. Maybe they just gave him something new.
Jenk.
And he's like, wowza, here we go.
I'm gonna call it right now.
These are bad guys.
I'm calling right now. Next conspiracy is that from conservatives is that Biden's gone and this is some fake Biden.
No, it's just stronger adrenochrome.
I don't even know what that is, but I'm sure that they will say that. They will say both of those things for sure. In fact, you guys are semi-geniuses. Like they're semi-fascists, you're semi-geniuses for coming up with those two theories. We'll be back. Back on TYT, Jenk, JR, by the way, the host of the watch list, Ravana, host of her own show on Twitch for us, twitch.tv/TYT, and also a host on Rebel Headquarters. So everybody check out all of that, love that. Also, look at all these new members. These are all new Young Turks. You can't stop us, there's too many of us. Michael Pratt, Brad Maidment, and Mara McGuire. You guys are all making this possible. I love it. Let's go tell the truth to everybody. The more members there are, the more unstoppable we become. Also, tyt.com/join. All right, JR, what's next?
Tucker Carlson's next. Let's get right into this one.
Liberals are too incompetent to overthrow democracy, and that's obvious from history. Every successful authoritarian revolution has had 2 things in common: a coherent worldview and a competent military force. Lenin, for example, Lenin had the writings of Karl Marx to provide an ideological justification for his revolution, and he had the military genius of Leon Trotsky to pull it off.
Tucker Carlson's talking about Democrats overthrowing democracy. I'll let you guys finish laughing from that for a second before I continue, because not only that, of course, this is based off of President Biden somehow, but not only that, there's an unlikely source. There's a person behind this entire thing that's looking to overthrow democracy. Yes, I said it again because if you think back to January 6th, if you think back to former President Trump, if you think back to all of his minions and supporters who are talking about civil war and jailing their political opponents and all of that, still listen to Tucker Carlson talk about who's behind all this. Watch more.
For all his power, Joe Biden does not have these two things. Marx and Trotsky? No. Joe Biden has Taylor Lorenz and Mark Milley. Lorenz is the ideological anchor of the Biden White House. She's its muse, its Che Guevara. They are inspired by her revolutionary fervor.
Really? So apparently it's Taylor Lorenz that's behind this, and she's the standard bearer of the Democratic Party, specifically of President Biden. As a matter of fact, let's let him continue talking about the things that she stands for.
But Taylor Lorenz does not write weighty books. Twitter is her canvas. And having surveyed her oeuvre, we can tell you that Lorenz's main idea appears to be that anyone who doesn't wear an N95 mask in the shower is a racist. That's the sum total of her ideology. Now, there are probably several dozen people in Cambridge who agree with that, but it is hardly the basis of a popular movement. It's not Marxism, it's whining. So that's a problem for Biden.
I don't even think his followers or his listeners and viewers really know what the hell he's talking about. So Taylor responded in the only way that you could when you're trying to figure out what a madman is talking about when he brings up your name. And she did tweet this out in jest. She goes, Biden, here's a picture of Biden trying to figure out who the hell I am and why our names are trending together. By the way, Taylor Lorenz is a reporter over at, I think it's Washington Post, am I right? Yeah, Washington Post culture reporter over there because she's pulling Biden's strings somehow. And also an editor from Daily Beast who at one point actually hired her as well. He poked some fun at it too because he knows her well enough to tell her this. He says, when I hired Taylor Lorenz at the Daily Beast, she had just come back from motorcycling across South America and was wearing a beret at a jaunty angle. I told her, go spread the religious revolution far and wide. Start your work in Wilmington, Delaware. Find your disciple. And apparently she has found him. But one more time, what was that word that Tucker said? Oeuvre? Listen.
And having surveyed her oeuvre.
Okay.
Okay. So obviously this is a target-rich environment. There's so many hilarious things in here. But of course, as always, keep in mind, as we laugh our asses off at what a comedy this is, literally every person watching Tucker Carlson believes it's true. They believe it with 100% certainty, and they think all of it is totally true. So like, as we laugh, are we laughing at Tucker's audience too? Sure, of course we are. I mean, who would be so maniacally stupid as to believe any of this? But remember, Tucker Carlson told this audience that if Joe Biden wins, he's gonna force you to drink Starbucks every day. Now, I don't know if that's happened to you yet, but the audience is totally unmoved by the fact that nobody's pouring Starbucks down their throats, right? Okay, so my main takeaway, other than is is that I am so jelly of Taylor Lorenz. Tucker, why didn't you just randomly pick me? Jesus, the ideological anchor of the Democrats and Che Guevara. Jesus, that's badass. They once did a video that Sean Hannity showed on Fox News where I was the mastermind behind AOC's win. Don't get me wrong. The video had like 4 or 5 people, and it made no sense. It was like, and you know what? Sean Chakrabarty is the mastermind. 2 minutes later, Jake Uger is the mastermind. There was like 5 masterminds. Anyways, but God, Taylor Lorenz, look, she's a really good reporter. We've had her on here. We like her. She does like N95 masks, okay? But she is, and by the sum total of her ideology is not that you're racist if you're not wearing one in the shower. I mean, come on. I know he's doing it a little tongue in cheek, but I'm positive his audience believes it literally. No, Biden wouldn't listen to a progressive if his life depended on it, let alone a random Washington Post reporter reporting on online stuff, let alone any progressive. He won't even listen to Bernie. He won't listen to the Progressive Caucus. He's gonna listen to Taylor Lorenz because she's the Che Guevara and the Yoda of Joe Biden. I mean, I think what Tucker's doing is a social experiment. How dumb is my audience? What can I get them to actually believe that no human being would ever believe that other people could believe, but I'll get 3 million of them to believe?
What was he trying to say?
I'm still.
What was the word he was trying to say there? I can't figure it out. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, so first of all, I mean, Jesus Christ, pretending that Joe Biden is some vanguard revolutionary leader. I mean, you have to have the mental capacity of hot dog water to believe that. Like, is that how dumb his audience is? That they're like, you just have to have air between your ears, just nothing going on up there to see centrist Joe Biden and think, oh yeah, this is the man who's bringing socialism to America. So that's number one. Number two, Taylor Lorenz derangement syndrome is so real. She's a wonderful reporter. I followed her for a while. I follow her on Instagram, actually. And a couple months ago, I got a message from a bot account that said, I see that you follow Taylor Lorenz. Well, did you know that she was fired from the New York Times because she used to work for the New York Times? It's not true, she wasn't fired. And then just a whole long list of other lies about her and her reporting. And I found out later that someone had paid for a bot to send that to everyone's Instagram account who had open DMs, who followed her to try to slander her. Because sometimes because she writes for the tech column, sometimes she writes articles about really rich and really powerful people in tech. And sometimes she pisses off the right people if you care about actual investigative journalism, the wrong people if you don't want to be the victim of a harassment campaign. But I mean, Tucker Carlson didn't just randomly pick her out of thin air. He's been harassing her for over a year now, sending his rabid followers after her, saying that she's some elitist, which is ridiculous coming from Tucker McNear, Swanson Carlson. I mean, you went to private schools your entire life. You're only in the position you have because daddy bought you your first job. I mean, everything in life has been handed to him, but we're supposed to believe that, this culture reporter is the person who's pulling the strings behind the scene and has more power and influence than the #1 most watched cable news host. It's ridiculous. But she continues to do her work and continues to uncover, important stories. And I have a lot of respect for her because she's been doxxed, she's been, harassed for years now, and she keeps going.
Yeah, so I want to clarify a couple things. First off, since we're the fairest show in America, I thought he was going for oeuvre. It's OUVRE, and the definition is a substantial body of work constituting the life work of a writer, an artist, or a composer. So it is a word, and he did use it correctly, and it was a little funny the way he said it. So look, fairest man in America. Okay, now, let me tell you about the part of the segment that was way worse than what we just discussed. So he talked about Mark Milley too, and he's like, oh, he's the Trotsky, the military guy, but he's incompetent. He says, remember when Republicans used to yell at us, support the troops, support the Lockheed Martin needs more money, we're gonna invade Iraq. I mean, support the troops, and they all put the ribbons on the cars and all that stuff, right? I mean, Tucker Carlson's ripping into the military night in, night out. To the generals, to everyone else, just like Donald Trump did. He said in that segment, the only thing scared of Mark Milley is a pepperoni pizza. And so, I mean, if the Democrats had said that about the generals before the Iraq war, everyone, including the mainstream media, would have ripped their face off, right? But hey, Tucker could say it all night long. Okay, so he doesn't like some of the generals, don't care, that's not a big deal. But then he made the pivot. He made the pivot to, no, they're trying to take over the country with this Marxist Che Guevara, Taylor Lorenz, and the military General Milley, and they're coming for you. And he kept saying over and over in that segment, this is really dangerous, it's aimed at you, this is gonna be a dictatorial takeover, and they're gonna come for you, you should not feel safe, okay? He's just egging on violence every night, that incredibly gullible, brainwashed audience of his go, oh my God, Mark Milley and Taylor Lorenz are gonna come over here. Oh, everybody watch out for the, get your guns, get your guns, get your guns. And so, and every night he talked, and the constant references, not just him, but all over right-wing media, Second Amendment rights, government tyranny, make sure you attack the government. Okay, Second Amendment rights. Nah, they're egging on an absolute disaster. And the way that Tucker Carlson is knowingly doing it for profit is one of the sickest things I've ever seen.
And part of that profit, by the way, is this is the thing. This is the process of demonizing someone. We're talking about why Taylor Lorenz, why coming after her, why is this odd nonsense line of criticism coming towards her? Once you start the demonization of someone that you need to make sure is buried underneath that demonization, you have to continue on. You have to go back to feed your audience some more red meat when it comes to hating her. Like, oh yeah, why do we hate her again? Oh, who cares? Tucker just told us that she's the puppet master in the string and carries the strings and controls Biden somehow. But they'll buy that because they need something. It's like our stomachs are almost empty of the hate on Taylor Lorenz. We almost forgot about her because there's actually nothing she has to do with this administration, but still, let's find something. And then, like, as you point out, then that's when the money comes in. Get those ratings, get those folks watching. It's like, oh yeah, we hate her. That's why Hunter Biden's this big main figure. Hunter Biden, Hunter Biden, Hunter Biden. You say it and many conservative MAGA ears perk up. Let's jump to this next story before we get out of this next break, huh? We have time for that. Since we're speaking about folks in their lines and they're constant over and over and over again, Lauren Boebert is also a victim of it as well. Let's start.
Joe Biden now wants to pay for lesbian dance art degrees, gender studies degrees.
If it wasn't in a different setting, I'd say that we're replaying the same thing. No, it's actually Lauren Boebert is replaying the same thing over and over again. That zinger about lesbian dance art degrees. And also she's talked about her own education history since she's going through this entire thing. But the lesbian art dance history degrees or whatever it is that she made up is definitely a comebacker. But first, I'm gonna let her get into her own education since she's disparaging other folks.
Joe Biden now wants to pay for lesbian dance art degrees, gender studies degrees. And he's robbing you, the American people, to do it. To pay for someone else's college education. Now listen, I think I got my GED for less than $100 bucks. There was a reason I didn't go to college. Taking care of my family, putting food on the table, and getting by with grit, grace, and determination. And now I'm on the hook for someone else's college education.
She went through grit and determination because she had to drop out, apparently for reasons of she had her first child. So that's her whole story. That's the background of her. But again, in case you guys don't believe me, she did say the exact same damn thing earlier. Listen to this.
How the heck can Joe Biden call America First conservatives a threat to democracy with a straight face and a dry diaper? He's the one who has allowed millions to invade our southern border. He's the one who is robbing hardworking Americans to pay for Karen's daughter's degree in lesbian dance theory.
In lesbian dance theory, apparently has to be said that particular way for it to land. Now, by the way, this is where the hypocrisy and actually the overlooking of so many Americans then comes in. Because Boebert's talking about how she had this gritty background and this is how she came up, and then she has to now be on the hook for other lazy, non-working people. Let's look at some of these people. The Biden administration crafted its student debt forgiveness proposal in an attempt to avoid benefiting the wealthiest families. To be eligible for $10,000 in student loan forgiveness, debtors must have earned less than $125,000 or $250K for a married couple in the 2020 or 21 tax years. Students who receive Pell Grants to attend college, meaning they come from low-income families, overwhelmingly earning less than the median household income in the United States, are eligible for an additional $10,000 in debt relief. This is an extra boost for those who started higher education without the safety net of intergenerational wealth. And an analysis from the education department found that almost 90% of the benefits would go to people earning less than $75,000 a year. Weird how that works, because again, just like Ted Cruz, who was calling folks who have student loan debt and maybe work at Starbucks, because he needs to bring that up as his example. They're potheads. They're smoking on the bong all the time. Maybe you should get a real job and not dealing with that. Again, a throwaway degree that they just make up and say that's everybody's case. But when it comes to Lauren Boebert, she's a hardworking American. She got pregnant early and then had a kid. I wonder what they call minorities who have children early and maybe have to not go to school to take care of their families. Think about the names they call them versus what Lauren Boebert's calling other folks.
Yeah, 100%. And so, look, there's nothing wrong with not going to college, and college now is so expensive. It's a real question mark as to whether you should go. And there's a lot of folks who have other ambitions, and I can't emphasize enough how do you, boo, right? It doesn't matter at all. But she thought saying there's a reason I didn't go to college was an own of us and others. I don't think that was the own you thought it was. Like, there could be a lot of reasons why you didn't go to college. In your case, yeah, one of them might be that you wouldn't have gotten in. I mean, I'm being serious. Like, I feel bad, but you barely got your GED, like barely. Like I think she just got it right before she went to Congress. Look, there's a broad swath of Americans who are of different, backgrounds, but like to weirdly flaunt, like, I can barely graduate in college, but high school, forget college, high school, oh yeah, barely graduated high school. All right, but it's like a weird thing to dance to. Like, I'm not hating on you, but it's a weird brag. So anyways, much more importantly, she's like, now I'm on the hook for these kids who went to college. But Lauren, you're also on the hook for like trillions of dollars that we printed and gave to the banks. Why aren't you concerned about that? That's like way more money. You're on the hook for all the money we give to defense contractors. You're on the hook for all the money we give away basically in tax cuts and loopholes and all that. They're literally worth trillions of dollars. And you're worried about the kid who went to college, right? But yet you take donor money from all those corporations and all the bad guys, and you funnel all of our money, way more of our money, to all those people, and we're on the hook to those to cover for the richest people in the world and giant corporations. These guys are such fake populists. That's why she's bragging about, I barely graduated high school, because her policies suck. They're not at all populist. They help the richest people in the country. So she's doing fake populism with, hey, listen, I can't go to college. That's totally fake. And then one last thing, and none of it is the own she thinks it is. I mean, she's telling a right-wing audience that Joe Biden is paying for lesbian dancers. I guarantee you that audience is like, where? And meanwhile, Ben Shapiro's like, no, don't watch porn. Don't watch porn. They're like, yeah, well, where? Where's the lesbian dancers being paid for? Okay, so that's my guess. That's the right-wing reaction.
If I had known that Joe Biden was gonna pay off the tuition for people who majored in lesbian dance arts, I would have switched my major before I graduated. Get all that money, get all that loan forgiveness. No, I mean, I agree completely, Cenk. There's nothing shameful in getting a GED. There's nothing shameful in not graduating high school, especially in America where we have such a underfunded education system that is, particularly lacking in offering resources to students in low-income communities and students with disabilities who, need accommodations and they're just not getting them. There's no shame in that. There's no shame in getting your GED later, or not getting your GED at all, or not going to college. That people take different paths in life, but there is something shameful about using that as a way to attack others. So, I mean, when it comes to Lauren Boebert, okay, so maybe for her, the right path in life was to work really hard and raise children with her convicted sex offender husband. But a lot of people worked really hard to go to college. I'm someone who is gonna benefit from the $20,000 student loan forgiveness. I had a Pell Grant. I worked in high school part-time. I worked full-time in college to get myself to law school, and now I'm working full-time in law school. It's been hard to get here. People who have student loan debt are also working hard, and every single person who is going to get benefit from loan forgiveness is making less money than Lauren Boebert. So while she stands there and preaches that she's, some victim who had to work, who has to work really hard, and she's not a member of the elite. This is someone who gets to vote on what becomes laws in our country. This is someone who's making more money than everyone, who's benefiting from this policy. You might have worked hard before, and you might have had to work hard to get where you are, to poison people with your disgusting food at the disgusting restaurant you owned. But now you're a member of the elite, okay? And you're in a class that should not be admonishing people who need this loan forgiveness.
Yeah. So look, one more thing on the substance here. Part of the reason that we push for forgiving student debt, the number one reason was policy. Okay, it's because it's the right thing to do, and in fact, four-year college, public college should be free. And you should have done it together. Get rid of student debt, make college free, so that everyone has access to an education and an opportunity and to live the American dream. But the secondary reason is politics. Think about it, guys. It's a genius move, because the people who are mad about the student debt relief are only a tiny bit mad. It barely affects their life, right? Are they going to vote based on that? Very unlikely. And if they were going to vote against Biden anyway. Okay, but everyone who got student debt relief, which is tens of millions of Americans, that affects their lives a lot. And for the first time in a long time, Democrats have delivered for them. And that makes them way more likely to vote. And tens of millions of Americans, that is statistically significant. And that's part of the reason why Republicans are so upset about this. But the more they talk about it, the more they fall into that trap.
100%. Yep. My last thought. Let's flip the narrative on this whole thing. We're the greatest country in the world. I said it this morning on Watch This. It's the greatest country in the world, best it's ever seen. What's the point of being American if you don't benefit from being an American in the richest country in the world and having some kind of an opportunity to then get to that point? Instead, they go, if you get something because you paid into the system so long and contributed to our society, if you get something back, you're a lazy POS. Isn't that horrific thing to say to Americans? Why do you hate the greatest country in the world? We make it up. We make up the population of the greatest country in the world. Why don't we get to contribute and get some kind of benefit from what we contributed to? That's the characterization they want to make you forget about. Let's take this next break really fast. We got to get out of here. When we do come back, though, there are teachers that are quitting. There's also Russians that are falling out of windows. We'll get to those stories when we come back. Also, your comments.
They want to make you drink Starbucks every day from now until forever. Oof.
I got to tell you a couple of programming notes. First of all, you got to watch List. That's JR's show. It's on at 9 o'clock in the morning on the West Coast, noon Eastern. It's the start of our programming. And soon it's going to go Watch List, Damage Report, Indisputable, Unbossed with Nina Turner, back to back to back. So you're going to love that. If you're not already subscribing, you crazy dog, youtube.com/watchlisttYT, youtube.com/watchlisttYT. patreon.com/watchlistTYT. By the way, tonight we've got right after this a bonus episode where we have one of the funniest stories about a part of the body you're supposed to tan. I love that story. So members, stay around for that. And then afterwards, there's Game Busters on Twitch. So that's Brett, Brooke, and Johnny Pie tonight. And so make sure you're checking that out. Fortnite tonight, wow. So 8:30 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/TYT. That's also where you can see Ravana's Twitch show as well. So make sure you're checking that out. All right, now member comments real quick. Biden flavor corn pop says, damn, this too strong coffee is good. Rebel Roast is my fave. So Rebel Roast is fantastic. Uprising is fantastic. I love the citrus flavor. We're not playing with you guys. It's great coffee. Try it. TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. The right wing supports their own products. There's no reason why we shouldn't support our own products. Okay, Lori B75 says, I can't believe we have such morons in Congress, referring to Lauren Boebert. And now I'm going to Twitch. B Heck at 420 says, well, I'm on the hook for buying tons of military weapons. I'm against. That is certainly true and much more of a problem. Dissident PM says, quoting Lauren Boebert, but not really quoting, it's a joke. When my husband flashed me his penis in that bowling alley, I knew college wasn't for me. There's a little bit of truth to that. Okay, anyway, that is kind of how she didn't go to college. DGF Swifty gifted 10 subs. Wow, thank you, we appreciate it. And said, I hope this is true actually, lesbian dance degrees sound awesome. Gretch Star says, imagine listening to this woman and thinking, yes, this seems right. Wild Devil Dragon says, it's obvious that Taylor turned down Tucker's advances on many occasions, hence the vitriol. All right, we'll be back.
Oof.
All right, back on TYT, Jenk, JR, Ravana, Pirate D Strike just became a member. I think there was a college fan of some sort that became a member. I appreciate it. Funk Dragon 76 said, raise the bomb. Megan Blinow said, love you, TYT. Danny said, yes, Ravana and JR. These are all YouTube members. We love you guys. You could become a YouTube member by hitting the join button below. All right, JR, what's next?
I love it. Let's jump right into this. Argentinian Vice President Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. She apparently survived a potential assassination attempt that was caught from Thursday night on this video. Watch this, it's disturbing. A scary moment that didn't come out the way that potential assailant wanted it to. And in fact, President Alberto Fernandez responded to it and pointed these things out. So let's watch what he had to say.
En el día de hoy, poco después de las 21 horas, un hombre atentó contra la vida de la actual vicepresidenta de la Nación y 2 veces presidenta constitucional, Cristina Fernández de Kirchner. Este hecho es de una enorme gravedad. Es el más grave que ha sucedido desde que hemos recuperado nuestra democracia. En el marco de una presencia masiva de personas frente al domicilio de la vicepresidenta, un hombre apuntó con un arma de fuego a su cabeza y gatilló. Cristina permanece con vida porque por una razón todavía no confirmada técnicamente, el arma que contaba con 5 balas no se disparó pese a haber sido gatillada.
For those not able to see some of the subtitles and also don't speak the language, one big part about that point he was talking was he said, Christina's still alive because for reasons that have not yet been confirmed technically, the weapon, which was loaded with 5 bullets, did not fire. He said that late Thursday. He said, this is the most serious event since we recovered our democracy. So a little bit more about the suspect that they arrested there. 5 people chased a man away from the scene and said he tried to kill Ms. Kirchner, according to Buenos Aires police. The federal police then arrested Mr. Montiel and found a pistol near the scene. The Buenos Aires police also said that as well. Now, they arrested, his full name is Fernando Andres Sabag Montiel. He's 35 years old. He's also a Brazilian man who's living in Argentina, and they arrested him in connection with that attack. Now, for some of the potential reasons behind this, which I guess we can only say in speculation right now, here's some of this political motivation. Ms. Kirchner, who's 69 years old, was Argentina's president from 2001 to 15. And the first lady from 03 to 07 with her husband, Nestor Kirchner, when he was president. Their political power was so strong in Argentina that it gave rise to Kirchnerism, a left-wing movement that remains one of the most powerful political forces in the country. So also in 2019, she returned to the Casa Rosada, Argentina's presidential offices, after masterminding a political ticket in which she would run for vice president and Mr. Fernandez would seek the presidency. Mr. Fernandez is not expected to run for re-election next year because of dismal approval ratings amid the spiraling inflation of Argentina's economy. Also, despite being reviled by the right in Argentina, she is still adored by a large portion of the country. Many political analysts have been speculating that Ms. Kirchner could try to return to the presidency as soon as next year. I guess the question could be, are people trying to think and push her away from this or discourage it? Who knows? I think they're still trying to figure that out.
Yeah, so first of all, that video is super scary. I mean, thank God that trigger didn't work. But as I watched that video and he pulls the trigger and there was 5 live bullets in that. I mean, he was like, what, 1-2 inches away from her face? Imagine what would have happened. That is so scary. So now to the politics of it, she's left wing and she's very popular. That is exactly the type of person that gets assassinated worldwide. And there's a reason for that. By the way, not just worldwide, here in America. Who are the folks who have been assassinated? John F. Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Fred Hampton, all left wing, okay? And because the right wing that has a ton of financial interest in making sure progressives and the left wing does not win, always seems to find someone who will pull the trigger.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in Argentinian politics. I'm not going to pretend I am, but there is a growing, right-wing fascist movement in Latin America, and we see it in Brazil. Supporters of Bolsonaro. We saw it with the coup of Evo Morales in Bolivia, and that's likely the motivation here. I've also seen some reports that the man who shot or attempted to shoot her, had a Nazi tattoo on his elbow, the Nazi symbol of the black sun. Not confirmed, but I've seen some journalists discussing that today. I mean, I can't imagine the fear of having a gun in my face, and I can't imagine the feeling of thinking, why did it not go? How am I still alive? I mean, my thoughts are with her, but we, in America, I think we need to put a little more focus on left-wing governments, left-wing parties, left-wing movements outside of America, and show support, especially when they're fighting against these, fascist oppositions.
Okay, so we're almost out of time. So I'm just gonna tell you guys a couple of great things. In the bonus episode for our members, we are going to talk about another international story. Another Russian has had a severe illness. You know what it was? Falling outside a window. Okay, and you're gonna be shocked to find out he was a Putin critic. So we're gonna discuss that ridiculous story. It's amazing, and how many Putin opponents have had a severe illness of falling out of a window. The list is incredible. And then a totally fun story in the post game. People are sunning a private part, thinking that it's going to help their vibrations. It is hilarious. tyt.com/join, or hit the join button below on YouTube. Members, we'll see you there right now.
Indisputable has been named the fastest growing news TV show in the United States of America, compared to all shows on CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and roughly 30 others. What do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable. Donald Trump radicalized citizens. He's the chief terrorist. Republicans still want you to think that critical race theory is the greatest evil that can happen in K through 12 education. It's not even taught. I guarantee you this, David. If he would have taken a knee during the national anthem to bring awareness to the need for more money for cancer research in America, he would not have had that response. It was the fact that he took a knee for black folk and brown folk. You rather pick the voters because you're scared of the voters picking the politicians.